Hello bookish friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lexi and today we are going to do a romance recommendation video in preparation for Valentine's Day. So obviously February is the month of love. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like Valentine's Day. I always tell Chris, I'm like, you should appreciate me and love me every day, which he does, but it's like, why do we need a day to be loved and appreciated and taken to like a nice dinner with nice food once a year? That should be happening often. But in the spirit of the holiday, I figured I would sit down and talk to you guys about some of my favorite romance books from 3 different like sub-genres. One being smut, which is like very spicy. One being contemporary romance, and then romantasy, which I've recently gotten into. So without further ado, let's just get right into the romance recommendations. I'm going to start with the smut category, which is spicy romance. And I'm gonna start with one of my favorite books that I read last year, which is Done and Dusted by Lyla. This is a cowboy romance, which I have 2 cowboy romances on this list. So this follows 2 main characters, one being Emmy, who is like a world-renowned horse rider, but like competitive, like barrel racing almost. She is one of the main characters. She got into an accident and hasn't been able to ride since, and she's had a lot of anxiety and stress that come with like thinking about getting back on a horse. And then the other main character in this is Luke Brooks. He's like the bad boy cowboy. He causes a lot of trouble. He owns a bar in town, so he's always constantly like in that kind of scene, always causing issues. Luke and Emmy's older brother are best friends, so it's like best friend's sister, and I love that. He has a lot of trauma from his childhood, which he doesn't talk about until like the very end, and doesn't like feel like he wants to open up to anybody because he never has, and Emmy obviously is the one. It's very spicy, but it's also very good. It's not mostly just like a sex-driven plot. There is an actual plot to it, and it's just, it gives you all the warm, cozy feelings. It will break your heart, I'm gonna warn you now, but it will also put it right back together at the end. And this is part of a series. The second book, Swift and Saddled, is coming out in 2024, and I cannot freaking wait for that. The next book I have on this list is Smoking Gun, which is also the first book to a series by Lainey Lawson. And this one starts out strong by our 2 main characters. The female main character is like in the shower, and the cowboy, this is also a cowboy romance, and the male main character just like up and jumps in the shower with her, but like they don't do anything, and it's kind of just like, that's how it starts. So he is basically the same thing, kind of like a Grumpy Sunshine type of situation, and the 2 main characters set up kind of like a rule about being friends with benefits, that they can have sex but they can't kiss, and obviously things take a turn from there, and that's all I'm gonna say about that one. But that one's also a really, really good cowboy romance, and I absolutely love that. And I'm pretty sure that was from a debut author. I love the first one. I can only imagine how much better the second one is gonna be. The next 3 books I physically own, so let's talk about them. The first one I have is Delilah Green Doesn't Care. This is a sapphic romance. It is so good and so spicy, and this is like one of my favorite covers ever. This follows our main character, Delilah Green, who doesn't do relationships. She's kind of like a bad girl and doesn't like relationships. She's a photographer, gets wrapped into being a photographer for one of her sister's friends' weddings or something like that. Runs into our other main character, Claire, who is a single mom, runs a bookstore, and just feels really like slumped in her life. But the 2 meet each other, and I think they start out by hating each other. They start to push each other's buttons, and it is just so good. This is just a beautiful book. This now has 2 other books in the series, which I need to get to the other 2 books in the series because I love this one so much. I read this in 2022, so it's been a while since I read this, but this is one that like, whenever somebody wants like a really smutty romance rec, this is one that I always go to. Pretty much all these books, when somebody says, hey, I want this kind of romance, these are the books that I'm gonna recommend to you because they're the ones that stuck in my head the longest. So absolutely love Delilah Green Doesn't Care. The next one I have is The Dating Plan by Sara Desai. This is also a very, I don't know how spicy it is. I read this one a while ago, but I remember absolutely loving this. It says, even with a step-by-step plan, these fake fiancés might accidentally fall for each other in this hilarious, heartfelt, romantic comedy. It says, Daisy Patel is a software engineer who understands lists and logics better than bosses and boyfriends. She has her life all planned out, but her family is like really intent on her finding a husband and doing like an arranged marriage type thing. Liam Murphy is the other main character. He's in like the business venture capital world. He is getting an inheritance, but there's like one stipulation that in order to get the inheritance, he has to be married for a year. The two come together because they both have issues. The girl wants her family to stop bothering her. He obviously needs a wife to get his inheritance, so they fake date, fake engagement, all that. And let me tell you, this gets spicy. The last smutty romance I have is probably my favorite out of this entire stack, and that is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a 3-book series. I've read books 1 and 2, but this follows the Brown sisters. It follows each sister. Like, there's 3 books, and this one is Chloe Brown, the second one is Danny Brown, and the third one is Eve Brown. It follows each sister and their love life. In this one, we follow Chloe, who has like a chronic illness and she's constantly in chronic pain. But she's very like goal oriented, and she has her own like small business doing like marketing or like graphic design or something. Basically, at the beginning of this, she almost dies, and then she writes out a list for herself of things that she wants to do. And it's enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. And then she runs into a man, she tells him about their list, and then they, you know, not gonna go that far. This was just so good because I love the depiction of the chronic pain, because I can like kind of relate to that. I'm not in chronic pain every day, but pretty much I am. And I love how this doesn't just have like sex in it. It has such a great story of her dealing with this chronic pain, feeling like there's nobody out there for her that can kind of deal with it and deal with her, and how she has to be and how she has to live. And then boom, comes this little ginger and a cat, and she's got the perfect life. So I absolutely love this series. Chloe Brown is definitely my favorite sister so far. That could change once I read Eve Brown. Danny Brown was really good too, but I don't know, there's something just about like reading the first book in a series that makes me just like only love this one, you know? Absolutely love this series. This is one I would highly recommend, and it reads so quick, so you could probably read it in a 24-hour sitting if you so please. So those are all my smutty romances. Now let's get into contemporary romance. The first book I put on the list for contemporary romance recommendations was November 9 by Colleen Hoover. And before you click away, Colleen Hoover is not one of my favorite authors. I don't really read from her anymore because I feel like she's kind of overdone. There's like specific books that I really like from her, like obviously this one, It Ends With Us, I love. That's just a classic. Verity, obviously a classic. But since those books, I haven't really read from her because I don't know, it feels like it's been done before, and I'm kind of just over it. But this book, I love this book so much. This follows our main character, Fallon, who was in an incident, I'm not gonna spoil that, in an incident when she was younger, and it kind of did something to her face. She's out to lunch with her dad, who's like really high in the production world, I think. She runs into this guy, Ben, who like seems like he absolutely falls in love with her right from the get-go, but he's actually moving across the country. Over time, and amidst the various relationships and tribulations of their own separate lives, they continue to meet on the same day every year, until Fallon becomes unsure if Ben has been telling her the truth or fabricating a perfect reality for the sake of the ultimate plot twist. They meet on the same day every year, but the plot twist on this, like, it's not a thriller, it's a romance. But once you figure out like why this man is significant and it relates to her past, it's just freaking insane. And she has to decide at the end of it if she wants to be with him or if she doesn't, because obviously they fall in love. This was just like, I don't even have words for this book. It was so freaking good, and it literally broke my heart. But I'm pretty sure you get your happy ending. It's been like 3 years since I've read this, but this is one that I constantly think of when people are like, I want to read a Colleen Hoover book. Obviously Verity is the first recommendation because that shit is just fucked up, but this is always like up there with Verity. Like, this is my second favorite Colleen Hoover book because this just is, it'll hit you where it hurts, that's for sure. The next 2 books that I have are from the same author, and they're from the same series, and that is The End and Then and What's Left of Me by Hannah Bird. This series is absolutely heartbreaking in the best way possible. They both follow 2 main characters who are kind of dealing with different issues in their lives, and they both have some sort of trauma from something that happened. They don't feel like they deserve love. They don't feel like they're ever gonna find love, and I'm not gonna tell you any more than that. Hannah Bird is one of my favorite authors ever. I do have her new book, Promise Me This, which it's like the month of love, so do I really want to rip my heart out? Yeah, I think I kind of do, honestly. So I'm probably gonna read this, maybe start it on Valentine's Day. We'll see. But Hannah Bird is one of my absolute favorite authors, and this was like one of my favorite series to literally ever exist. She also has a little Christmas novella if you're feeling up to it, and it's spicy. Anything Hannah Bird is gonna be great for the month of love. The next book I have is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm not like a huge Emily Henry stan. There was one book I read from her, can't remember the name of it, and I thought it was just like okay, but then Happy Place was so good. It's about this group of friends that have been friends for years. They always meet up in the summer and go to one of the girls' like beach houses. Two of the main characters were in a relationship and they were engaged, but then they broke it off but didn't tell their friends, and now they have to be in the same house and try to figure this shit out. This was just a beautiful story. I love this because I love all the summery vibes they gave. I love the friend group and I love the development of the friend group, but what I love the most about this is that these two like basically fall back in love with each other. Trying to figure out how I can say this without spoiling it. Basically they split up for a reason, called off their engagement for a reason, and the female main character doesn't really know why the man called it off, and then you find out and it's just like heartbreaking, but you get your happy ending, and I just absolutely love this book. This is one that really sticks in my mind, so highly recommend this for the month of love. The last contemporary fiction I have here is Kismet by Becky Chalsen. This is also another book that kind of has the trope of like falling back in love with your significant other. This follows a set of twins, Amy and Joe. Joe is getting married on Fire Island in Long Island. This follows the week of their wedding. Some drama happens. The main character is married and he's like a huge part of the family because they've been together for a while, and they kind of like fall out of love but then fall back in love, and it's just such a great story. This is great for all the summery vibes. I absolutely love this. Let's just talk about this cover. It's so cute. Becky Chalsen is coming out with her second book in June of this year, and I cannot wait. It's called Serendipity. It also takes place in Fire Island, Long Island, and this is just fantastic. So Amy, our main character, is the one who's dealing with some marriage issues, and she basically has to figure out throughout this wedding week if she and her husband are going to make it and if they're going to stay together. And somebody from her past may or may not pop up, but if you want to know, you're gonna have to read it for yourself and find out. But this is a fantastic contemporary fiction where you get your heart ripped out, but then don't worry, Becky puts it back together and make sure you get your happy ending. So highly, highly recommend this one. Okay, the last book I have, I read on my Kindle, and that is the Ohana Cottage by Reinking, I think is how you pronounce it. This is a love story based in Hawaii. I actually read this when Chris and I were in Hawaii on our honeymoon, so it has a very special place in my heart. This follows our main character, Mia, who is fresh off a breakup of somebody she's been on and off with for years, I think since high school. And to kind of escape her world and escape her troubles, she jets off to Hawaii, as you know, one does. And she rents this cute little cottage in Oahu. The owner of the cottage becomes of interest in this story, and I think the reason why I love this book so much is because I was physically in Oahu when I was reading this, so I was like mentally picturing everything. And when I was sitting at the beach reading and she was like talking about being at the beach, I was like, oh, she was definitely at this beach that I'm at right now, which is probably not true. But this just has all the very cute cozy vibes. The main male character deals with a lot of trauma from his past. I'm pretty sure he's in the military or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but this was just such a sweet little story. I absolutely love this book. There's more books in the series and they all take place in Hawaii, and I slowly want to make my way through them. And when I read them, I want to imagine that I'm back in Hawaii because that was the most magical place I've ever been. All I keep talking about to Chris is being in Hawaii and wanting to go back, but it's such a hassle for us to get there. It's like a 19-hour travel day, and I would do it all again because I loved Hawaii so much. But enough about Hawaii, let's keep rolling with this video. So those are all the recommendations I have for contemporary fiction. Now let's get into some romantasy, and I really only have an entire book series and one book for this, but technically it's two series. Obviously the first one is going to be ACOTAR. The entire series is full of spice and beautiful fantasy. Honestly, I'm not going to sit here and talk to you about ACOTAR. It's basically just a romantasy series that follows a couple different main characters. Like these first three books follow Feyre through her journey of Tamlin, Rhysand, her sisters being assholes and all that. Then there's like a short little novella that's just like, people call it the Christmas episode, so it's just super heartwarming and adorable. No spice in this one. This one, the last book for now, follows Nesta and Cassian, our other main characters, and I love these for introductory reads going into romantasy because it's not super confusing to picture the world and picture what Sarah J. Maas is talking about, but it's also not like so dumbed down that you're like, okay, I get it. But the spice in here is also fantastic. The plot twists in here are fantastic. And honestly, this is just like a book series that everybody needs to read. It's so funny to me because my friend Maeve from college has been like begging me to read those books for years. And I was like, no, I don't think I'm gonna like them. And they're smaller books with really tiny font. And I was just like, no, I'm not doing that to myself. Literally read ACOTAR and then was hooked on the series, and now it's like my personality trait. I did read A Court of Thorns and Roses physically, and then the rest I actually listened to on audio. Highly recommend the audiobooks. Okay, the last book I have for this video is going to be Miss Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is also just another classic fantasy romantasy book. The world building in this is fantastic, but what I love the most about this is this gives me Divergent vibes, but with dragons. And everybody says Hunger Games, but there's not really like Hunger Games vibes. It's more Divergent, where you choose like which way you want to like depict your life. Our main character Violet goes into our rider's quadrant where she learns to be a dragon rider, and shit just goes up from there. There is the second book, Iron Flame, which also I guess I could include in this, but I don't think the second book was as good as this one. I love the plot twist in this. I love the characters. I love the world building. I love the dragons. I love the spice. I love everything about this book. It definitely gives Divergent vibes, and I want Xaden Riorson to be my book boyfriend. I don't want Peeta. I like 4 too from Divergent. So 4 and Xaden are my book boyfriends, and I love them. I absolutely love this book. If you are a newbie to romantasy, I highly recommend you start with this and ACOTAR. Like, those are the 2 best romantasy series in my humble opinion. Okay, that is all my romance book recs for the month of love this February. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you saw any of your favorite books in here, please let me know. Or if you have any romance book recommendations, please leave them in the comments below for all of us to enjoy and read. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a video. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye!